This video is brought to you by anti-gravity lithium-ion batteries used by Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha and Monster Energy Kawasaki and many more teams. And you can use the same battery as Eli Tomac, Jason Anderson, and others. Anti-gravity batteries offer more power and capacity than the competitors because they give you a larger lithium battery pack. But additionally, they offer features like the world's first batteries with built-in jump starting that will never leave you stranded. So check them out at antigravitybatteries.com.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to another edition of RacerXOnline.com First Test. This is the 2023 KX450SR, stands for Special Racer. Back in the day when James Bubba Stewart was riding the Kawasaki KX450, that's what it was. It was the SR, and you're looking at the new version right now. So, we're gonna go rip this sucker here at Glen Helen Raceway. We've had a lot of weather here in Southern California lately, so good conditions for us here, not normal. Deeper, ruddier, heavier dirt. So we're gonna really break down the new Showa SR suspension versus last year's KYB and all the little details that come with this special racer unit from Kawasaki. So stay tuned, we'll be right back and we'll break it all down for you. All right, wrapping up here at Glen Helen Raceway. Good track for us West Coasters here today. It's been raining a crap ton here in Southern California. Glen Helen has this sandy shale that comes down off the mountains and it makes the track really soft and grabby and sandy. And what I noticed here today, just so you guys know what the track is like, when you land off these jumps, there's this braking bumps that start really early. So when you land, you got holes, you got some big braking bumps. You East Coast guys know what I'm talking about. Us West Coast folk don't get that a lot out here, so it's nice change of pace. Good for testing the Kawasaki KX450SR. All right, so what is new on the 23 SR versus last year's version? Well, just the Showa suspension. I'm not gonna sit here and give you the whole spiel of why Kawasaki last year had KYB, but of course, you guys know that had something to do with coming out with an Eli Tomac edition, which obviously Eli moved to Yamaha, so that kind of screwed that stuff up. So they went back to Showa. We got the A-kit style fork as well as the shock. We got coatings. So that is the only huge difference from the 22 to 23, which we found out today does make the bike feel different on the track. Eddie Laret here. What else does the SR customer get versus the standard edition?
So obviously you can see this beautiful Pro Circuit pipe. You get race team inspired graphics. Obviously you got the Rox X-Trig clamps that are fixed at the production offset. Renthal sprocket. It's got the DID STX wheels.
Massaging of the head,
yep.
So porting. Unlike other manufacturers that I've heard, maybe you don't have a port and polish. This is actually done in Japan, port and polish, so you can feel the difference on the track. So what else we got? I think that's pretty much it, huh?
And then ECU's been massaged for the pipe and the head.
So otherwise, it's basically your KX450 enhanced. That's kind of what I felt out here today. So what I have a problem with the standard KX450 is it's easy to ride. If you're a bigger guy, you don't have a lot of strength, the KX450 standard power is really smooth and linear and long, and I like that, but there's not a lot of excitement. The SR brings the excitement back to the KX450. You got pulling power out of a corner, you got throttle response, so as I'm rolling out of these deep conditions that we have here today, I actually feel some meat behind me as I'm trying to shift into third. And what I've noticed as well is I can't lug third gear on the standard edition, but this, I can get away with it a little bit more. It's not quite as good as a Yamaha, but you can run third gear if you're a vet guy, fan that hydraulic clutch a little bit and you're back in the meat of the power. Eddie's a bigger guy. What do you think? And Eddie comes from a KX450 background, people. He loves a KX450. He has purchased one himself, so you're very familiar with this bike.
Yeah, so that was actually probably one of the most exciting things on this bike. Like the suspension, I mean, obviously everyone sees the coatings and they think right away, oh, I got a kit, I got factory suspension. The production suspension that comes on this bike is really good, minus the coatings. So the suspension wasn't really what I was focused on. I wanted to feel that liveliness out of the motor that you talk about, that the production bike doesn't. It's a more comfort feel on the production bike.
It's a vanilla power. Like, you're not going to turn down vanilla ice cream. It's good.
Yeah.
Like, I'll eat it, but it doesn't have that chocolate sauce on it like this does.
Yeah. So today, like you talked, the track really deep, wet. This was what you needed for Cowie. If we would have had the production bike today, you know, it would have been a lot. There wouldn't, for me, for sure, there would be no third gears in the corners. It would be all second, and you know, you would be having to ride the bike a little bit harder to keep the pace that this engine package is not a fire breather by any means.
Still has a linear character to it.
It has a very linear bottom to mid character, but it's what it needs to really take this bike to the next step.
So if I could explain it to you guys might be sitting home and go, what's he talking about? It says it's exciting, but it's linear. So you can have linear power coming out of a corner and it's long and easy to ride. You can feel that to the rear wheel, but what we're talking about is low RPM excitement, that snap of the throttle, that mid RPM response, that crack. It has that crack, that jump. So for me, it makes the bike feel lighter. It jumps up out of the dirt really quick, but then once you're accelerating, it's really long and linear, which still has that stockish power, but just enhanced a little bit. For me, I like that exciting power at times, most of the time I should say. The times I don't like that crack is when I'm trying to run my inside lines where you have deep ruts. It's a little bit herky-jerky,
yeah,
on-off
jerky
feeling. I would like to touch it up a little bit, smooth it out from like 0% throttle opening to about 10%, just that little crack. I would like a little bit less jerk, but some of you heavier guys, being that you're 220, right? You might like that.
Yeah, I didn't notice it as much as, like, you know, you said today there's a lot of long distance ruts, so you're kind of just feeling them around. I don't notice it as much because of probably the weight difference.
I'm 170, by the way. I'm all DNR. He's more built like a man.
235.
I'm built like a boy.
So yeah, I like where this bike sits right here. I like the power. It's comfortable. You can ride it long periods of time. It's not pulling on your arms. But it, like you said, it has that excitement when you get into a deep rut and you bury it. It's there and it's awake and it's ready to go.
For me, Eddie was more concerned about the engine coming into this. I was more concerned about the suspension. Most of the time, I prefer a KYB suspension feel. Why is that? Normally, when I get stock production KYB stuff, it moves more in the stroke. It follows the ground better. I have a little bit more small bump comfort. So I was worried going to the Showa that it would lose some of that, but actually it didn't. It still has a nice track toughness feel. So track toughness to me is I can really get into bumps really hard. When the track changes from a soft type of dirt to a hard pack dirt, it blends itself together and I still can keep that comfort. It doesn't change as much. The Showa stuff here on the SR actually surprised me. It does have good small bump comfort and it does actually move in the stroke if you soften it up. The Showa clickers are more sensitive than KYB clickers. So if you're going to do an adjustment, I would like to see you guys do one click at a time. You might think, oh, it's one click, whatever, but Showa stuff is actually more sensitive. KYB, I can go 2 clicks and feel it a little bit. Showa stuff, I can do 1 click and feel a huge difference. So for me, 170 pounds, I softened the fork just to get a little bit more lean angle compliancy and bump. Soft 1 up front, and you can actually, if you guys want a little bit more movement, you can open up the rebound 1 as well. I actually tried to back out the high speed on the shock to prevent that rear pushing me into the corner. I felt like the rear was a little bit stiffer than the fork and it gave me a little push on decel. Tried high speed backing it out. I didn't like that. I went back into standard position and then backed out 2 clicks on low speed and that was much better. You went an opposite way.
Yeah, so obviously being a bigger guy, you know, I thought, well, the bike obviously is going to sit pretty low in the stroke on the forks. So I actually went 4 stiffer on the forks.
Wow.
I went we sped up the rebound 2 on the fork.
Which is smart.
And then, yeah, just to follow the transition, because you want to keep the same action. And then I actually stiffened a half turn on the high speed, but I did notice the bike, and I don't know if it's because we have the spring wound so tight to try to get it close for me, the bike kind of stink bugged at first. So then when I stiffened the high speed, stiffened the forks, I got more of like the low speed stuff was kind of chattery, and I was having a hard time finding lean angle traction. And the bike just didn't really want to settle where I needed it to settle. So we actually came back. We went back on the shock. I opened the high speed up, 1 on the shock. I left the rebound. I left the forks, and I felt that to be more balanced comfort for high speed and low speed. Was it perfect? No, it by far is not perfect.
When you're 220 pounds, you're going to have to do something, right?
Correct, yeah, and that's...
When they build these bikes, people, they're not built for 220 pound men. They're built from 160 to about 190, right? That's the window they're working with.
Yeah, so I think I was really happy with it towards the end. You know, it's a new bike. I think we have 3 hours total on it now, so everything's really stiff. The shim stack's really stiff. So I can generally get away with it with that when it's fresh like that. As it starts to break in, then, you know, it gets to a point where it's too soft. But
5.0 on the fork spring, 54 Newton millimeter. So I feel like it could go up a spring rate, and then we can back out some dampening. I think that would help it. For me, they probably have a lot of dampening in this shock and then a lighter spring. Just depends on who's valving it and the style that they do it in. But they went with a lighter spring and maybe some heavier valving. 105 millimeters on the sag. And right here, we're about anywhere between flush to 2 millimeters. Here at Glen Helen, you want to have this bike calm. If you want a little bit more cornering progress in area 1 to area 2, you can raise that up to like 3 to 4 millimeter. This overall feel of this KX has a lot of stability. There's a lot of bump absorption, great frame. A lot of these other manufacturers are looking at this bike nowadays to see how they can get their frames as good as this bike, because dampening quality of this chassis is excellent. You're not going to find a better chassis out there for bump absorption, straight line stability. This bike does it. And with the SR, you're just getting a little bit more meat, a little bit more hold up, things that I like. When I had the stock bike, I wanted my front end to come up a little bit. This new Showa setting actually does that. Other things that I wish it had, Eddie, we were talking about. The seat is not something to be desired. Like, it's just plain. You have a special racer edition. You maybe want a gripper seat. Maybe not have vulcanized grips on. These things are gnarly on the hands.
Yep.
And there's no way you're getting that throttle grip off unless you get another tube. It's just a nightmare.
Yep.
I prefer a little bit different levers. Maybe go to some arc levers like the factory guys do. Not as narrow. They're pretty skinny. I don't know if you like that or not.
The brake for sure. The clutch is not as bad. The clutch actually has a lot of, for me, it has a decent feel, but the brake lever, I mean, anybody that's ever seen it, it's straight, it's narrow, it's sharp, and it's kind of weird because I've never rode a motorcycle that the clutch and the brake lever don't have the same
feel.
round feel to them. So that takes a little bit to get used to.
All right, to wrap this thing all up here, the Kawasaki KX450SR is a special, not only special racer, but it's a special type of bike. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's gonna be $3,000 or more for this model. But there's some of you out there that want the looks. This guy's very, very high on looks, trust me. And you want the coatings, you want all the stuff. So the parts on here, they do add up to be more than the difference between each bike, the stock and the SR. So you are getting a lot in that span versus if you just went out and bought the parts yourself. But, Eddie, I'm gonna ask you that tough question because you know the Kawasaki people are watching this video. Would you rather buy a stock one or this one, knowing what you know now because you have ridden both?
That's hard, you know, because the engine package, you're not gonna, I mean, I'm sure you could duplicate that at an engine shop, but it's hard. I don't
say it, Eddie.
I don't know. I mean, if you have the money floating around and you're not mechanically inclined and you want to just buy a bike and go ride it that day, then yeah, buy it. This is a phenomenal motorcycle.
Look, I'm going to cut to the chase. He's waffling for you guys. I'm going to tell you guys.
Personally, myself, no, I
Okay.
would not buy one.
I'm gonna go the other way. If I was gonna dump some money into my KX450 2023 Standard Edition, I might as well just go buy this because I'm getting a little bit more engine feel. I'm getting the muffler already. I got the X-Trig clamps. I got a stiffer suspension setting that's stiff enough for me. So I feel like that could be stiff enough for most people in that weight range. So for me, the money is worth it. So I would purchase this. I'm not the type of guy that likes to sit in my garage and build certain things, like build this bike up. I just want to ride. You're that guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's in the shop every night, tinkering, building, putting things on his bike, and watching it come to something that he wants it to be, right?
Yeah, so this one, the hard part for me on this one, that if I had that, you know, additional money laying around, is the engine. The engine is, for me and my weight, is so comfortable and it's fun to ride that would lure me to buy this motorcycle. But at the same time, like, I could probably find Pro Circuit that could match this engine package, or some mapping and ECU that could get me there. So it's hard to, I'm gonna
Waffle.
retract my statement. I'm not gonna say that I wouldn't buy one, because I'm a Cowie guy at heart. If I wanted to just say, hey Chris, I want to just buy a bike and ride, yes, I would buy this
It's never
motorcycle.
gonna happen, people.
I would valve the suspension for it. I would change the handlebars and grips, lever configuration, and I would just ride. If I wanted to customize this motorcycle, maybe go with some KYB 8-kit suspension, then I would build my own.
You have a buddy out there, people, that just is never happy and want to switch bikes every 2 months. That's my guy here. Like, I can't keep up. He wants this, he wants that. So I feel like he would just buy a stock one and build it himself. I feel like that's what he would do. But for me, I just want to ride dirt bikes. I want to enjoy it. I'll tinker with suspension and the testing part of it, but I don't want to be in my shop all day doing stuff. I'm not the mechanic type. He is. All right, so thing I want to do really quick before we wrap it up here. I didn't talk about the clamp. The clamp feel from the stock one to this bike, also, there's a little bit better Area 1 front end positivity with this clamp. I do feel like I can get into my corners slightly better on this SR versus the stock one. I've always said, when I ride a KX450, I feel like I'm towing a trailer behind me. It feels long. I can't corner as good as I can on other bikes, but this bike gives me a little bit more front end feel, and I think that is directly due to this clamp. It doesn't give me any more harshness, but just gives me more front end lean angle traction. So there's that. So that wraps it up for the KX450SR. I doubt that we'll have this bike for a year. They're very, very tight about giving these bikes out. Chances are pretty high Don Maida will get one. Swap Moto, calling you out. You probably will get one, Don, but over here at Racer X Keefer Inc., we probably won't get one. I would rather have this bike all year versus the stock one, so let's see if I can finagle that. We'll see. And if we do, we'll talk about it more on KeeferIncTesting.com and the longevity portion of it. That is a huge thing. Durability, right? You're dumping 13 grand into a bike. How long is it gonna last me? So hopefully we get some of that report back to you. And as always, you can go to racerxonline.com for more videos, more information. Subscribe, 12 issues, $30, lots of stuff inside the magazine that you can't see here online. And if you have any questions about this bike or other bikes, Kris, K-R-I-S, at KeeferIncTesting.com. I'm here to help you guys. My door is open. That's what separates us from other people out there. We're willing to help you guys, and we actually talk to you. So that is nice. We'll see you on the next video. It's gonna be a lot of them coming up. So probably gonna go somewhere different besides Glen Helen next time, because the guy behind the camera drives a long way, gas is expensive. We'll see you on the next test.